Hey gems, and welcome back to another one of my videos. A couple weeks ago we hit 1,000 subscribers here on YouTube, which is really cool. It was one of my goals for 2023, so we did it pretty fast, so that's pretty nice if you ask me. But as a thank you, I wanted to do a 1k Q&A. So I asked you all to leave me some questions on my previous video and on my community post, and I did some on Instagram. So we've got lots of questions and I'm super excited to answer them all for you guys. So let's just get into the questions, shall we? Oh, actually before we do, just want to shout out, this is a test I finished recently. This is the Fever Dream sweater by Samantha over on Instagram. So you'll see a little bit more of it in my next video, but it's super cute. Still got to weave in the ends, but we're not going to talk about that. But yeah, shout out to this jumper. It is the highlight of the video. But now let's get into the questions. So the first one is, how are you really doing? I'm actually okay. The past couple of weeks have been a little bit iffy. The best way I can describe my mood recently has been frustrated or fed up. I think that's the one that I used a lot when talking to Scott. I just felt fed up. And I think that's because I haven't been doing anything creatively for myself. I've been doing a lot of pattern tests recently, which I love to do and I'm not going to stop doing, but I haven't given myself any time to sit down and make something that's come from my brain and I've made myself for myself. I'm hoping that in the next month I'm able to do that, but you know, I love pattern testing. I'm not going to stop, like I said, and I have some really exciting ones to finish and get started. So I think also after having 2 weeks off from having surgery and then going back to work, it's been a little bit of an adjustment and I've just been, you know, I don't want to go to work. No one wants to go to work, but you know, once I'm there, it's fine. But yeah, I think fed up is the best word I can explain as to how I have been feeling. I'm okay now though. I'm pretty good. Yeah, haven't had any breakdowns recently, which is nice. It's really good. So next up is, what are your pronouns and where in the UK are you from? So thank you for asking. My pronouns are they, she. I have a preference to they, but I use both, you know, interchangeably. I came out as non-binary in, I believe it was either 2020 or 2021. I have a whole YouTube video of me coming out. It's kind of cringe. I don't recommend watching it. Yeah, my pronouns are they, she, and I'm not going to say exactly where in the UK I'm from just because I don't really want to dox myself fully, but I am from the West Midlands. When I went to uni, which was up in the north, people couldn't quite figure out what my accent was because sometimes I come off very brummy. I don't know. It's just I've got such a weird amalgamation, if that's the word, of accents. Some people thought I was Australian when I first started streaming. I got a lot of people saying I was Australian. I'm only half Australian. My dad is Australian. Scott hates when I say that. I don't see my dad anymore, but my dad is Australian, so I am half Australian, but I don't ever speak, you know, I've never really been around Australian people, but I do like to talk it sometimes. It's very fun to just slip into conversations. But no, I am from the West Midlands. But what do you think I sound like? Where do you think I would be from if you didn't know? If I hadn't told you that and you just heard me speaking, I'd love to know. This next one is from McDoot. It says, what do the numbers in your name mean? I bet it is something really cool that only cool people know and not dorky at all. The numbers 0451 is actually a Easter egg from a game. Now, to me, it's from BioShock. BioShock is like one of my most favorite games ever. It's really inspired me with a lot of my set design. It's a very art deco, very grimy, just really fun game to play. It's one of the very first games me and Scott ever played together, and it stuck with me throughout our relationship and, like I said, has inspired me. But it is a door code to get into a room in BioShock, but I believe it originates from a game called Dead Space. Oh no, not Dead Space, Deus Ex. Deus Ex? I'm gonna Google this because otherwise Scott's gonna absolutely tear me a new one. Oh no! It's none of those. It's literally none of those. I'm pretty sure it's actually from System Shock. I wish Scott was here now to tell me what the hell 0451 is from. To me, it's from BioShock, and it's because when I first started streaming, I wanted to name myself something really cringy, like Good Vibes Only or something, I don't know. And Scott was like, no, that's stupid. No one will follow you. That's really cringe. Let's just, you know, what's your nickname? Jazzy. Give me some numbers. And I said 0451, and he said, yeah, that's fucking sick. So that is where my name is from, and I love it. It's really cool when people know that it's from BioShock or from System Shock or, you know, any other game, because it's quite a big Easter egg within the gaming community. But anyway, that's my whole spiel about video games and the numbers, but that is what it is from, and it is very cool and not dorky at all. Next one is, what are your life goals? Ooh, that is an interesting one. I want to be a set designer. I want to do production design for someone. Give me a job. But that's what I went to uni for. I did set design at university and I love it, but it's hard to get a job straight out of uni for set design, especially after COVID. A lot of people know who they want and they just hire them straight away, and it's really hard to apply for things because they want like 2 to 3 years of experience, and I don't have that because nowhere will give me a job. Classic. So I would love to be a set designer, but at the moment, crochet content creator. I mean, it's so much fun to make these videos and to do Instagram and TikTok. I love making all those pictures and videos to post for you guys. It's become a lot more of a reality for me recently to kind of pursue this and make some kind of, not career, but some kind of, you know, whatever out of it. So if the set design doesn't work out for now, I'm going to continue with this. Set designer is like my actual life goal. That's where I want to be. I've always wanted to work in film. Before I applied to the uni that I went to, I did apply to do film at a different uni, but when I went there, they were all really like intense and I was like, ooh, this does not seem like the place for me. And I realized I was more of a hands-on kind of person. I did a set for my A-levels, so my teacher was like, what are you doing? Why are you applying for film and not set design? So set designer, to answer your question. Do you believe in ghosts and have you ever had a paranormal experience? Ooh, this is another interesting one. So I have a little story. Not really is the overall answer to your question. Do I believe in ghosts? Yeah, maybe. Like, I can't really say either way, but as a kid, my mum is a hairdresser, and in one of her older salons she had a ghost that she called, I believe it was Charlotte or Elizabeth, I can't quite remember the name, but basically she would have things go missing all the time, like clippers and the little clips that like hold your hair up, grips, like just little things. It would be like in one place 1 second and then just like the other side of the salon another second. So she would always joke about how the salon was haunted by a little girl. It wasn't ever anything that like was, you know, malicious or anything like that, but that's kind of like a fun little story that she likes to tell me every now and then. I wasn't ever scared of them, but you know, do I believe in ghosts? Maybe. I know that's not really an answer to your question, but those are my experiences with ghosts. This question just says Homestuck? No, I have never been involved in Homestuck. I was not a Tumblr girly. I was not ever on that side of the internet. So I never actually heard anything about Homestuck until I watched the documentary by, I cannot remember their name, Sarah Z Homestuck, like video essay, which is actually really entertaining and really funny, and now I don't need to know anything else about Homestuck because she's told me it all. So that is my experience with Homestuck. This next one is I'm so happy you got 1k, thank you so much. Besides gaming and crocheting, what are your other hobbies? Much love from a fellow queer crocheter. Well, thank you very much. Besides gaming and crocheting, I mean, okay, it's not really a hobby I partake in as often, but in high school and, you know, through uni a little bit, I love singing. Singing is a huge, or was a huge part of my life. I have a grade 8 in musical theatre, and it's something I would love to pursue a little bit more, but I just don't have the time for it. Scott loves music, and we've written a couple of songs together. If you scroll a little bit too far back on my YouTube, you will find covers of me singing songs. I haven't deleted them yet, but, you know, don't test me. But me and Scott have written songs together. We wrote one and made a music video for it, which is called Going Under. It's like very near and dear to my heart, so I wish I could do it more often, but I just don't. I love to get back into it, but it's hard, you know? Music is hard to kind of pursue. That is my other hobby. So this one is, what is your fun fact? And every time someone asks me this, the only thing I can say is that bees don't have lungs, because my friend from uni, Hannah, that's like what she tells me every time, and I'm like, bees don't have lungs? That's literally so sad. Me and Scott had this like whole debate the other day about how they like smell, and if they're bees and they love flowers, then how can they smell? And it turns out they have like smell receptors on their antennas or something like that, so they can smell the flowers. Don't worry, don't get too sad. But yeah, every time someone asks me what my fun fact is, it's that bees don't have lungs. So thank you very much, Hannah. This one is, why did you start crocheting? I started crocheting like I think many people did when lockdown struck, and you know, us creatives didn't really know what to do, and so we picked up some yarn and we tried it out, and I'm so glad that I did, because I literally don't remember what I did before I started crocheting, like what I did to fill the time. I like think back and I'm like, did I really just like watch TV and movies. Like, what else did I do whilst I was watching TV and movies? Yeah, I started crocheting during lockdown and then took it to uni and then have just carried on ever since, and I love it. I love it. I'm so glad I did. One thing good to come out of the pandemic is me crocheting. This one says, are you a full-time content creator? How has that been? If so, I'm not a full-time content creator. I would say like part-time maybe, because this is something that I do a lot. It takes up a lot of my day, even if, like, you know, it's not a job, but I guess it doesn't have to be a job for it to be, you know, whatever. I do have a part-time job which feels like a full-time job, and I work in a craft store, so I do that. But I get asked all the time, do you really crochet like all the time? And the answer is yes. If I have 30 seconds where I'm not doing something, I will crochet. I had a half an hour break at work yesterday, and guess what I did? I crocheted. So like, yes, every waking second that I can, I am crocheting. Full-time crocheter, part-time content creator. So these two questions are quite similar, so I'm going to put them together. The first one is, how do you get inspo for your projects? They always look so cool, and I've hit a wall. Thank you. And I love your videos while working on my own crochet projects. Why do you find inspo for projects? I'm always looking for ideas, but most of what I see is repetitive and boring, which, yeah, I kind of agree. Honestly, Instagram has been a huge inspiration for me. I don't really use Pinterest that often, but Instagram and TikTok, I think I just like to curate my followers list as well, so that it's full of people who do inspire me and, you know, always keep me thinking. But also, I'm always looking out for things like when I'm watching films or TV shows and I'm like, I could do that. So yeah, Instagram, just make sure you're following the right people, make sure you're looking in the right places. But other than that, I don't really know. I haven't really, like I said, made anything that's from my own brain recently, so it's hard for me to say like what inspires me to create something new. But I have a lot of ideas. Just make sure that you're surrounding yourself with things that inspire you, and then draw inspiration from that, if that makes sense. I hope that's helpful. I don't know. What do you do while crocheting? I've mentioned a couple times, but I literally just watch YouTube videos, films, TV shows. I watch Scott play games, and that is about it. My favorite YouTubers, I'm a big true crime person. I'm trying to cut down on the true crime because I'm not quite sure what it's doing for my mental health, but you know, I watch a lot of true crime, but also like Froggy Crossing, love Froggy Crossing, love List Lass, Shawnee Jew, Therm, like just a lot of really cool, fun gaming creators. And ever since I started making crochet YouTube videos as well, I've been recommended more crochet creators, so I've been watching a lot of them recently. But yeah, YouTube is like the main one because it's really hard for me to like start a film or start a TV show. So yeah, YouTube, TV, film, watching Scott play games. That's what I do whilst I crochet. And this question kind of follows on from that, and it says, any favorite movies and shows? Yes. My favorite movie of all time is Stardust. I have a tattoo of a snowdrop on the back of my arm as a little homage to that film. It's just the most beautiful, magical, amazing film ever. It has such a good roster of actors as well. Are you kidding? David Williams, Charlie Cox, Michelle Pfeiffer. The list goes on. It's just such a good film. It's such a fun, good film. Oh, at one point in my life, I could have quoted that film from start to end. Love Stardust. And then for TV shows, always classic Arrested Development. I discovered Arrested Development when I went on a Michael Cera film binge, and I was like, wait, he's in a TV show? And he's like 14 years old in that TV show. It's like crazy. But it's so funny. It's the exact humor that I love. I'm not a big comedy person. Scott hates that. Every time he wants to put on like a comedy film, I'm like, no thank you. But Arrested Development is right up my alley. It's the perfect kind of dry humor. It's just, there's no laugh tracks, which is just even funnier. So if you haven't seen Arrested Development, it's so good. Kind of falls off in the later seasons, but you know, the first couple, they're really good. So Arrested Development is my favorite TV show. So this next question is, I was wondering how you work through any lack of motivation or creative slumps. The best thing for me is to just put the project down and either work on something else or do something completely different. Whilst I was working on this piece, I loved this piece and it was truly a labor of love, but the stitch just got a bit repetitive and I found myself burning out, and I was like, if I don't put this down for a second, I'm never going to finish it. So I picked up another project, which was my duck jumper, and it just kept me motivated. And I then came back to this and I was like, oh, this is easy, this is fine. So putting down a project, picking something else up, and kind of re-inspiring yourself is a great thing. Or just put the project down and, like I said, do something different. For me, that would be to play probably Animal Crossing or Stardew Valley, but you could read a book, you could listen to music, go make dinner. Like sometimes when I'm like feeling really frustrated with a project or like unmotivated, I need to eat. You know what I mean? You're not yourself when you haven't eaten. So go make yourself some food, sit down, take that time for yourself. And I feel like once I pick the project back up again, I'm like, okay, this is easy, I can do this. I feel inspired to keep going. Do you know what I mean? With creative slumps, again, I think it's just a case of surrounding yourself with things that inspire you. Maybe scroll through Instagram or TikTok or Pinterest, whatever floats your boat, and see what other people are making and get a feel for what's on your mind. What do you feel like doing? Are you doing something that you're not actually that inspired or motivated to do? If so, put it to one side. Do something else. Like I said, it's a pretty good one for me. This next one is kind of in the same vein, but what's your fave thing to crochet when you're sad or bored? Literally anything colourful. Anything colourful, and also colour work. I love colour work. I mentioned this in my last video, but colour work keeps my brain active, it keeps me stimulated, and if it uses bright colours at the same time, that is a win. So anything really colourful. And if I'm really sad or really bored, it's probably because I'm working on a project that is really big and is going to take a long time. So what I recommend is to just pick up something that is slightly smaller. For me, last month that was making my cat balaclava. That took me like a couple of hours to make. It meant that I had started and finished something like really fast. I was then motivated to pick this back up or pick whatever back up and keep going, and I wasn't as bored anymore because I had changed the thing that I was focusing on. Put on some good music, put on a good TV show or whatever, and just look after yourself. Do some skincare, eat some food, whatever floats your boat. Drink water. Drink your damn water. Water is actually so good. That's all I have to say about that. These two questions, again, are basically about the same thing. We have, do you have a pattern for the cat jumper / will you make one? And pattern for the cat hat, please. So these two projects are not necessarily like mine. So the cat jumper is completely based off the cat Afghan, which, you know, is by Sandra Miller Maxfield, I believe. There is an infamous cat Afghan, and people have made jumpers using this. They've made vests, bags, blankets, whatever. And so all I did was use that and then make a jumper out of it. It doesn't feel right in my heart to release a pattern that uses that chart because it's not mine. Everything else is super simple. Like you could use any jumper base to make the rest of that jumper. So I probably won't be releasing a pattern for the cat jumper just because, like I said, it doesn't feel like it's my own creation. And then the cat hat isn't mine at all. I followed a tutorial by Jacqueline on TikTok, which I mentioned in my last video. So if you want to make the cat hat or the cat balaclava, please go watch her video on TikTok, because again, it's not mine, so I will not be releasing a pattern for that one. I'm ever so sorry, but no, I will not be releasing a pattern for probably either of those projects. I am so sorry. This question is a little bit of like a crochet tip, I guess, but it says, how do you get your crochet pieces to have little to no holes? I would say there are two important things to decrease the amount of holes that are in your garments or your work. One is choosing the right hook size. When you get a skein of yarn, it will on the back tell you what size hook or needle you will need, whether you're crocheting or knitting. Typically, if you're using DK yarn, it's a 4mm, Aran yarn 5mm, chunky yarn could be like a 6 to an 8. But definitely check on the back of your yarn to see what size hook it says. If you want it to be a lot denser, you can size down. If you want it to be slightly looser, you can size up. I'd say there's like a 0.5 lenience on either way. So for example, this is a DK yarn, recommends a 4mm, but I used a 4.5. Just my preference. You could use a 3.5 if you really wanted it to be like nice and snug, but choosing the right hook size is definitely one way. The other one is your tension. Tension's really important with crochet. My friend at work, Charlotte, has been trying to learn to crochet, and I tried to teach her a little bit the other day, but the thing that she was getting stuck on was tension. So it's something that's quite difficult, I would say, to get the hang of when you first start crocheting. But like I said, with crocheting and with knitting, it'll be really hard the first couple of times, but then one day you'll put it down and pick it back up and it'll just like snap. I don't know what happens, but it just clicks and you understand it. And there's no real way for me to like tell you how to get good tension. It is just something you have to practice, and that's the third thing. Practice makes perfect. The more you do it, the better you get at it. So everyone holds their hook different, everyone holds their yarn different, so there's no right or wrong way to do that, so don't worry about that. But just make sure that your tension isn't too loose. That is what will get you the most holes, but also make sure it's not too tight, because then you might end up skipping stitches or splitting your yarn as you try and pull through. So you need to get that nice middle ground, and you will get it, so don't worry. This next question I get quite a lot, so it'd be nice to answer in this video. I was wondering how you can get into pattern testing. Pattern testing is super easy to get into. It's the things that you need to do in order to get chosen for pattern testing, I guess. So most of the time, if someone wants you to test their pattern, they will put out a tester call post. A tester call. They will put out a tester call on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, wherever they kind of use social media the most, and there will either be a link to a application form, or they will say like comment on this post or DM me or whatever. Now that's the easy part, finding out how to apply. The other part to it, which is really important, is everything that they look for in order for you to get chosen. I believe it's Evie on Instagram who put out a really good post the other day about what they look for in testicles, but from what I found, it's really important to have a good portfolio on your Instagram. Your social media should be public as well. You need to have a public account, otherwise it's not very good for the creator if you have a private account and no one can see the product. Do you know what I mean? And you need to have a nice, doesn't have to be many, it could be like 3 or 4, but some nice good quality pictures of products. That means that they need to be really clear, in nice lighting, not grainy, you know, stuff like that. If you have that, you're pretty much set to go. Follower count doesn't really matter, and it doesn't really matter if you're friends or mutuals with the creator. It does benefit to kind of have somewhat of a relationship with the creator, but you know, sometimes I'll be scrolling Instagram like recommended and I'll see something, I'm like, oh my god, I love this, I would love to pattern test for it. Or maybe one of my friends has shared the post and I'll apply for it and I've gotten chosen, and you know, you become mutuals through that. I would say the most important thing is to have a nice portfolio of work on your Instagram. So yeah, to get into pattern testing, all you need to do is find out how to apply. Most likely will be a link in bio to an application form, and then the second most important thing is to have a really good portfolio on your Instagram. What is my favorite kind of granny square? I'm not sure really. I haven't done granny squares that often, but I think my favorite one to make is probably the heart granny square. I've made hearts the most because I've made bucket hats and jumpers and stuff like that. Yeah, I would probably say the heart granny square, or just like, you know, your traditional granny square is just a good staple. I used to make flower granny squares all the time when I first started out because I thought it was so cool. I could do a magic circle, you know what I mean? But they are so time consuming and I just don't have the patience for it anymore. So a heart granny square, which is just your traditional granny square, but you change colors every now and then. These next 2 questions kind of go hand in hand, so I will put them together. What are your favorite yarn brands / places to buy yarn? And what's your favorite / most used fiber? So my most used fiber is acrylic. It's easy, accessible, and it's cheap, and it's pretty soft depending on what brand you use. You know, I think most people's most used fibers are acrylic, and there's a lot of people that take issues with that because, you know, it isn't biodegradable, it isn't sustainable, you know, it has plastic in it. We need to stop doing that because sometimes it's the only thing that people have access to, and to me, as someone who can't really afford to buy natural yarns all the time, or, you know, sustainable yarns all the time, it's the only thing I can make my work with. I try and use cotton more often. My favorite kind of yarn to use is cotton. I love that it's lightweight, I love that it's breathable, I love the texture of it and the feel of it on my body, but acrylic is the most accessible, and it's the most accessible for most people, and we shouldn't shame people for using it. So if you do that, what is wrong with you? Stop being a bully. My favorite brand of yarn is Stylecraft Special DK. That is the yarn that I've used since day one. I love it. It's pretty affordable. It's an acrylic, but it comes in nice big skeins and it's super easy to use. So many different colors. I love that brand. I've also been using a lot of the Women's Institute recently because it's in the store that I work at, but it's also a really nice brand of yarn, especially their Aran yarn. It's so nice and thick and dense and soft. So the Women's Institute is another really good one. And then my favorite places to buy yarn, absolutely number one, Wool Warehouse. If you're from the UK, Wool Warehouse is such a good website to buy yarn from. Free delivery over £25. There's always some kind of code that you can use to get a little bit of money off. They're super fast, they're super nice, and I love Wool Warehouse. I'm a Wool Warehouse stan. It's also cheaper than a lot of places. I said in one of my TikToks that I bought some yarn from a shop once and it was like £3.50, and on Wool Warehouse it was £2.50. So just saying. So Wool Warehouse is like my number one place to buy yarn. The second to last question I have is, what is your favorite and least favorite thing you've ever made? I have a couple favorites. Because I just simply cannot choose. My number one favorite thing I've ever made is my Utopia cardigan. It was one of the first like proper cardigans I made and I wear it all the time. Just such a nice cardigan. I would love to make a pattern for that one day. But like I said, it's my most worn cardigan. It's right there. Actually, you can see it right there. It's so colourful, it's so warm, and I just love it. So Utopia is my number one. Then my cat jumper. I do love my cat jumper. I need to edit the waistband on it actually because it's a bit tight on my waist. So that's the only thing that stops me from wearing it too often. But my cat jumper is another favourite. And then my Fishy Alex jumper. I love my Fishy Alex jumper so much. I wear it all the time and so does Scott. It's just like one of my most well-made pieces. I say this all the time, but yeah, top three: Utopia, Fish, Cat. Love those pieces. My least favorite thing, I think my least favorite item I've made is probably my primary colored vest. It's just not well made. It's not the right stitch to make a vest out of and it doesn't fit very well. It's alright paired with the right outfits, but it's just not my favorite thing I've ever made. It's not bad, it's not awful, but I would say that's my least favorite thing I've ever made. And then the last question is, do you have a hot take about crocheting? I don't think I do. I think a lot of the hot takes that I have already been said by people. I think we should stop shaming people for using unnatural fibers such as acrylic. I think that there needs to be more access for plus size creators or just people to make plus size garments. I think maybe my biggest hot take isn't necessarily a hot take, but I don't like when people say, when you start crocheting, start out small. Because if I had started out small, I don't think I would have continued. If someone told me to make a bucket hat as my first project, I probably would have lost my mind. I made a cardigan as my first piece and it was just so cool to like watch it come to life. And it was a big project, it took me a while to make, but the satisfaction of finishing it and being like, I made this with my hands, is falling apart now. But that's what's kind of kept me making cardigans and kept me making wearables and just given me so much inspiration when it comes to crochet. If you say to someone, oh, I'm gonna start crocheting, and they say, oh, what are you gonna make? And you say a cardigan or a dress or a jumper, and they go, oh, you should start with something smaller. Tell them, bog off. This is my thing and I want to do it. My main point here is not to let anyone tell you you are being too ambitious. Just do what makes you happy, do what you feel inspired to do, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. If you want to start with a hat, absolutely go ahead. But you know, I just don't like when people say, oh, you should start small. No, you shouldn't. Sometimes bigger is better. That's all I have to say about that. But that is all of the questions that I have. Sorry if I missed out any or if people ask questions after I've recorded this video, but that was fun. Thank you so much for listening. I hope I didn't waffle on too much and I hope I entertained you. I hope that you got to know me a little bit better, and maybe in return you could tell me something about yourself. Maybe in the comments you could let me know what your pronouns are and a fun fact about yourself, or maybe not a fun fact but just something. Just let me know. I'd love to get to know you guys better, and like I said, I hope you've gotten to know me a little bit better. That is going to be it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching whilst I ramble on about crochet. Remember, if you liked this video, then give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It'd be great to have you here as part of this gem community, and can follow me on all of my socials. I'm Jazzy0451 literally everywhere. But without further ado, have a wonderful rest of your day, night, evening, wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.